June 6, 1944, at the Omaha Beach sector, General Lieutenant Dietrich Krass commanded the 352nd Infantry Division from its coastal defense. Wet grass pressed against sand. Smoke drifted across the exits, while rifle bolts worked behind hedgerow banks. Krass had prepared fields of fire with machine guns, mortars, and rifle squads, armed mainly with the carabiner 98K. In this country, a man could see across one field and lose the next behind a wall of earth and roots. His infantry trusted that limitation. A trained rifleman was expected to fire deliberately with 5 cartridges, while the squad automatic weapon controlled the position. That was not bravado. It was the discipline on which the division had been built. As the American beachhead widened beyond the first exits, ordinary U.S. riflemen moved forward carrying M1 Garands. Krass held to the defense already in his hands. An empty American clip sprang clear after 8 shots. The American system was already present in Normandy, not as a single famous shooter, but as standardized M1 Garand issue carried through U.S. Army infantry units. On August 2, 1944, near St. Lo, General Lieutenant Dietrich Krass was killed while the 352nd Infantry Division was being driven back through Normandy. Its commander was gone, and the formation that had entered the campaign as a major German infantry division was moving toward ruin as a coherent force. The pressure came down to the ordinary riflemen. Normandy enclosed men inside small fields, sunken lanes, orchard edges, and hedgerows, so dense that a firing position could be only a few yards from its target. The German squad still possessed machine guns and mortars. Its prepared positions still had weight. But every American rifle squad brought men armed with the same semi-automatic rifle. The M1 clip held 8 rounds. It gave a common infantryman more than a single carefully measured chance when movement crossed a gap in a hedge, when a first shot missed, or when another figure appeared beside the first. No special marksman had to be found. No rare weapon had to arrive. The rifle was already in the hands of the men pushing through the fields. Krass commanded a division built for a defense that used terrain, fire discipline, and the division of labor inside each squad. German riflemen remained skilled. Their rifles remained accurate and rugged. The carabiner 98K had not become useless in the hedgerows. A man behind cover could still make an American pay for every yard. Yet the contest was no longer confined to the first aimed shot. It became a contest of what happened immediately afterward. In the seconds when smoke hit a target, leaves shook, and another body moved through a narrow opening. The American advance kept placing that contest in front of German infantry positions. The 352nd Infantry Division answered with the discipline it trusted. The carabiner 98K carried 5 rounds. Those 5 cartridges had to endure against an American rifleman whose first clip held 8, and the hedgerows had made every pause expensive. During June 1944, Normandy became a land battle beyond the beach exits, and the enclosed country kept forcing German infantry back into close, repeated fights. The sea was behind the Americans now. Ahead of Krass's division lay fields divided by banks, trees, brush, and narrow lanes, where a position could seem secure until the next movement appeared through the leaves. The 352nd Infantry Division still manned defensive ground. Its machine gun teams remained central to the German squad. Mortar fire still reached into fields that looked quiet from a distance. Riflemen still used the cover they knew best, firing from shallow scrapes, hedgerow banks, and gaps cut through roots and earth. But the American infantry moving toward those positions was not made up of specialists. It was made up of ordinary riflemen with standard weapons. Their rifles gave the advancing line a different rhythm. A German defender could expose himself, fire, and work the bolt. Across the hedge, the American rifleman could keep his shoulder set and fire again. That difference did not erase German skill. It made skill fight against time. In the tight Normandy country, time was measured in the instant before a target ducked away, the instant before a second man crossed a lane, and the instant before an American squad brought more rifles to the same bank. Kreis's command was therefore defending more than a coastline. It was defending the old arrangement inside the German infantry squad, where the riflemen delivered deliberate fire, and the automatic weapon dominated the fight. The men under him had trained for that arrangement. Their weapons had been built around it. Their positions in Normandy were meant to reward it. The division still believed the hedge could protect the man behind it. The American M1 clip held 8 rounds. Behind that simple contrast stood the older German faith in the riflemen, waiting to be tested long before Kreis reached Normandy. 1935, Germany. The Carabiner 98K became the standard service rifle of the Wehrmacht, carrying the Mauser bolt-action tradition into a new army. It was accurate, rugged, and built around deliberate handling. Its internal magazine gave the rifleman a measured reserve of cartridges. German training did not imagine every infantryman as a celebrated marksman. It demanded something harder to sustain. A rifleman had to see clearly, use cover, control his breathing, and place fire when the target showed itself. The German squad did not rest its whole weight on that man alone. Its machine gun was the center of the position. Riflemen protected it, supplied it, and added deliberate shots where the gun could not reach. That arrangement had served German infantry across Europe. In a defended hedge, behind a wall, or across a lane, the bolt-action rifleman was expected to make his first shot count while the automatic weapon held the ground. 1936, the United States adopted the M1 as its standard service rifle. The decision reached beyond a weapon trial. The Army had chosen rapid individual fire for general issue. It did not reserve that ability for a specialist, a machine gun crew, or a selected marksman. It put the rifle into the structure of an infantry force that would have to train, supply, and replace men across an ocean. 1941, Springfield Armory in Massachusetts and Winchester Repeating Arms in New Haven, Connecticut, turned that decision into metal, wood, and crates. Receivers left gauges and benches. Stocks were fitted. Rifles entered Army channels as a common issue weapon. During the war, more than 5 million M1 rifles were made. The German answer remained the squad built around its machine gun. The American answer placed faster repeat fire in the hands of the riflemen beside it. General Lieutenant Dietrich Kreis would have recognized the old rule at once. A German defender was to fire with judgment, then let the squad weapon dominate the gap. More than 5 million M1 rifles had been made. June 7, 1944, Normandy. Beyond the beach exits, German infantry still occupied hedgerow banks, orchard edges, and sunken lanes. Concealed riflemen waited behind roots and earth. Machine gun teams covered openings that seemed too narrow for an advance. Mortars reached into fields that could not be watched from one firing slit. The defense had lost none of its discipline overnight. For a German rifle squad, the country still offered proof of its old methods. A bank concealed a firing position until an American crossed a gap. A lane forced men into a narrow approach. A machine gun could lock down the ground in front of it while riflemen searched for figures at the hedge line. The defender could still make the attacker stop, crawl, and bring up more men before moving again. June 9, 1944, west of Carentan. German troops continued to contest the routes through enclosed fields, while American infantry pressed forward from hedge to hedge. The American system was already on that front, in thousands of rifles, ammunition clips, replacement channels, and formations. German defenders did not see a single new weapon deciding the field. They saw noise, movement, and another infantry line finding its way through ground that had already punished the first. That reading was understandable. The German position still functioned. Its machine guns still covered lanes. Its mortars still forced Americans into cover. Its riflemen still had the accuracy and concealment that German doctrine expected from them. A successful defense did not need to explain why the enemy kept returning. It only had to stop him that day. Crace could still order his men to hold the banks and trust the weapons already dug in. His staff could still read the resistance as evidence that training and terrain remained on their side. General Lieutenant Dietrich Crace put the demand in the language of a commander under pressure. Hold the line and make every shot count. June 9th was still a day the German defense held. June 12, 1944, near Carentan. The distance between opposing hedgerows could be only a few yards. A German rifleman fired once through a slit in the leaves. Then a second American target moved into the same opening. One deliberate shot had created two demands before the bolt-action rifle could be worked and the rifle settled again. The figures did not close. German doctrine had been built around the value of the aimed first shot and the squad machine gun behind it. Yet the close ground kept presenting another target before the rifleman had recovered the time spent after the first. The American rifleman did not need to break his firing position in the same way. The hedge had protected the German marksman, but it had also trapped him inside the rhythm of his own rifle. June 17, 1944, at the Wolfschanz in East Prussia, Adolf Hitler ordered the 2nd SS Panzer Corps transferred toward Normandy. 2 SS Panzer divisions were moved from the Eastern Front into the battle in France. The order was not an admission that German riflemen had failed. It was a material adjustment to a front whose original defenses had not contained the beachhead. July 2, 1944, at the headquarters of Oberbefehlshaber West in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, Field Marshal Gunther von Kluge replaced Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt. One Western command changed hands, while the fighting in Normandy continued. German command was adding formations and changing leadership because the defensive line demanded more than the positions already prepared. Crace could still tell his infantry to use the hedge, conserve fire, and trust the machine gun. 2 divisions had been sent west, yet no order gave the riflemen back the seconds between the first target and the next. July 25, 1944, near St. Lo, Operation Cobra began with the German infantry already holding less ground than its maps still showed. The bombardment tore gaps through the front. Once American troops moved through them, the division could no longer decide where every rifle squad would fight. Positions prepared over weeks became rear areas in hours. The first loss was concentration. German companies had used hedgerows to gather their machine guns, riflemen, and ammunition behind selected firing lanes. After the breakthrough, those same companies were ordered to detach groups for roadblocks, village edges, and crossings. A squad that had trained to support one machine gun position was divided among several emergency tasks. Its riflemen lost the ability to place their fire where their commander wanted it most. The second loss was defensive depth. A hedgerow bank mattered when another bank stood behind it, and another beyond that. During the retreat from Saint-Lô, the German infantry was repeatedly ordered to occupy ground it had not prepared. Men arrived at a new line, with no cleared fields of fire, no registered mortar targets, and no certainty that the unit beside them was still there. The deliberate first shot remained possible. The organized position around it did not. The third loss was experienced handling. A trained carabiner rifleman could use cover, judge distance, and make the first round count. But training could not replace a man after he was killed, wounded, separated from his platoon, or sent rearward without his weapon. The American pressure already established in the hedgerows now produced a harsher result. German infantry lost the men who knew the local ground at the same rate it lost the ground itself. The fourth loss was command reach. Orders moved along roads clogged with retreating troops, damaged vehicles, and units trying to find their own headquarters. A company commander could direct a machine gun only if its crew still had ammunition, a field of fire, and contact with the riflemen meant to protect it. Each withdrawal shortened the time available to restore those connections. By the end of July, the division was no longer using its rifle doctrine from chosen positions. It was spending it in fragments. Its infantry had a bleak assessment. We are being ordered to defend places before we can make them defensible. July 25th had taken the front away from them, and the system behind the American rifle was still supplying the men who crossed it. In 1944, at Fort Benning, Georgia, American infantrymen learned on the same standard rifle they would carry in France. They loaded clips, fired from prone and kneeling positions, cleared stoppages, and handled the weapon under instruction before entering a rifle company. The answer to the figure that had refused to close was not hidden in one hedge or one patrol. The American riflemen could fire again because the Army had made that capability ordinary. The weapon, its ammunition, its repair parts, and its training belonged to one system. A replacement arriving in an infantry unit did not need to learn an unfamiliar specialist weapon. He entered a force organized around a common rifle. Armorers knew it. Supply channels carried its clips and parts. Instructors had taught its handling long before Normandy turned seconds into casualties. That was why German adjustments could not recover the time their riflemen had lost. They could move machine guns to threatened sectors. They could shift riflemen deeper into cover. They could order tighter fire discipline and demand that every man conserve ammunition. Each order assumed a stable position, an intact squad, and enough time for the machine gun to dominate the engagement. The retreat after Cobra removed all three. German commanders also committed formations where the front had broken, not where their plans had placed them. A rifle squad arriving at a road junction had to face American infantry already carrying the same rapid-fire standard weapon from one company to the next. The German response remained dependent on assembling supporting weapons, ammunition, and trained men at the right point. The American Rifle Company brought fast repeat fire with its ordinary riflemen before those arrangements could be restored. The practical result was a gamble. German infantry held villages and crossings long enough to slow the advance, then withdrew before being cut off. Every temporary stand consumed another group of men and another portion of the command structure. No revised formation created a reserve of seasoned riflemen. No order rebuilt a defensive belt after it had become a route of retreat. German infantry command had reached its own conclusion. We can still delay them, but we cannot rebuild the fight they are taking from us. The Army had made the M1 a common issue long before 1944, and the retreat was carrying the consequences eastward. In the first days of August, the retreat still had the appearance of procedure. German infantry units moved from one road junction to the next, checked weapons, counted ammunition, and looked for orders from headquarters. Men who had defended banks and lanes in June now waited beside unfamiliar fields. The positions were no longer selected for machine gun coverage. They were selected because the column had reached them before dark. The division had already lost the ability to rebuild itself between engagements. A rifleman could still fire deliberately from a ditch or orchard edge, but the squad system that had given his skill purpose was breaking apart. Machine gun crews lacked the riflemen meant to cover them. Platoons lacked contact with neighboring platoons. Officers issued orders to units whose locations had changed before the message arrived. Near Saint-Lô, the division's commander was killed during that retreat. His death did not begin the crisis. It exposed how far the crisis had already gone.